everybody. It is Cinnamon Queenie, your Art Sherpa, and today is Watercolor Wednesday on Thursday because we had to bump Wednesday's class to today. And we're going to be doing a botanical of an apple, which is like one of my very favorite things to paint. I love doing these because they're fun and they're relaxing, and they have these really practical uses in our life. To help me do all this mayhem is my husband, John.
Hello.
The whole reason we got to have a fur tip video on the acrylic channel and a watercolor live on this channel is because my partner in crime is always up for mayhem, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here, babe.
It was fun.
So, okay. You know, here's my thing. Back in the day, go in the way back machine. We won't say how way back, but way back. I used to work a little bit in the paper and card market and had an agent, and I would do work for that. And one of the things that you would do is all of these sort of botanicals of fruits and vegetables and olives and flowers and different things. And they were great because they could go in the kitchen. Now, it's you know, you can go buy something and frame it, and that's wonderful. But what's really wonderful is when you do it yourself. So I felt like this apple is kind of trending right now and kind of fun. It's going to teach a lot of skills, and it's going to look really good in your home. I've got a fresh from the Mail Artistico. My very favorite plant. It's enhanced improved color lifting. I love this pack. I never really thought about looking at this. Enhanced improved color lifting, increased surface resistance, and vegan friendly quality. That is a true thing. Actually, you have to think about in watercolor paper because there's this thing called rabbit glue and sizing, which is not vegan. So you do actually have to check in art supplies if being vegan is very important to you. Some art supplies are made from animal products. A lot of reds are made from animal products. For a whole period of time, brown was made from people. So it is good to read those things and if those are important issues. But this is my brand new, untouched, unsullied watercolor palette. This was courtesy of the Savoir Faire division in McPherson's, which I really appreciate. They sent it over because they heard I was out.
You had used the papers.
I had used all the papers, and I couldn't get the paper. I had went to look to order it, and I couldn't get the paper in my size when I went to order the paper, which is why I had the other second favorite band. So I got this, and this is my favorite, and I'm going to open it up. And, oh, it smells so good. So here's why I like this. This is a 140-pound watercolor paper. That's the baseline of what you want on any watercolor paper that you paint with. A lot of people like 300-pound. I say that's for when you're further along in your art journey. Start at that 140-pound mark, but no less. Now, it's cold press. That's a preference that I have. It means bumpy. You might like hot press. That means smooth. And it's on a block, which means all the little pages are glued together, and that prevents a lot of wrinkling. This particular paper is made in Italy, and it's 100% cotton rag, which means it just like it holds the water differently than other blended papers. However, you just as long as you get 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, you're going to have a much better experience. The colors for today, I always have the same colors on my palette, and then I use different variants of them. I believe I will be using Payne's Gray, Nickel Azo Yellow, and Hansa Yellow Medium. I see some Pyrrole Red I'd be getting into, Quinacridone Magenta. I may get into my blues. There's some Opera Pink, Transparent Pyrrole Orange, Burnt Umber, Quinacridone Gold, and Phthalo Green. When you see me painting with these colors, I'm going to give you their proper names, but you might be on an artist loft palette with 36 little pans. Just pick the color that looks kind of close to what I'm using. So if I'm using an orange, you just pick your bright orange. If I'm using this pink, you just pick your brightest pink. You may get some slightly different color mixes, but it's not going to bother your piece overall. How is everybody today? I sent out a text. Are you guys still okay getting the texts?
Very much so.
Right? So sign up for that only if you want to hear from me. Because I'll tell you if there's going to be a live chat on a show where I'm going to be present. So today I sent out a text because there was a fur tip, and I was present in that live chat to talk to people and answer questions directly. And I sent out another text, there's 2 texts today, to you guys because we had a watercolor live, and I am here present in the live teaching. So that's when you get them. So if you would like those, that's when you sign up for the text, which we're going to have global texting soon.
Karen's so glad she got the text. So happy.
Yay! All right, the apple botanical. I can sketch out my apple. You guys have a traceable. It's on the website, Watercolor Apple. You can just download it and use the transfer method. I have a video on how to do traceable. But we'll talk a little bit about how you might get this on. Now I'm going to use, this is a watercolor graphite pencil. Different than a watercolor pencil because this isn't pigment. This is pencil lead. It's graphite. And it works just like pencil lead until you add water, and then it's water soluble. So sometimes people are like, but isn't that a watercolor pencil? It's water activated, but it is graphite. It races like graphite. It blends like graphite. It lays down like graphite. And if you've ever worked with watercolor pencils, like anything from like Crayon d'Ache or any of the crayons and everything, you'll know that those will go down a little differently because it's pigment, not graphite. We've got this wonderful apple coming in. When you're planning where to put your apple, you want to think about your framing. If it's going to go in your kitchen, I highly recommend that you do these little studies for your kitchen. It just cheers the whole thing up. I also like roosters really for the kitchen. Now you're kind of getting sucked into my personal taste. But I am going to give myself sort of an idea of my apple shape. It's going to be very light. You'll notice I'm not going to sketch super heavily here because I really want my outside edges to be sort of light. I'll bring a little line in, a little line in, the far perspective of the apple. Apples have a divot down, and that's something that you've got to kind of learn to paint in, and that's generally where your stem will attach, so I can give myself that information early on, going, oh, there's this stem, and it's attaching in here. It has stemness. You have a stem, I have a stem, we all have a stem. And then we've got a wonderful branch coming down and leaves. And actually, I really like to freehand these. It's just a little sketch.
Yeah,
this is a very light sketch to just let me know my apple is about this big. It's a circle. Very low pressure. And if you feel pressure, use a traceable. There's nothing wrong with it. I just sometimes will paint raw in my watercolor because I'm very comfortable with that. Now I'm going to use, this is my natural hairbrush. The head of this brush is an Escoda. And the back of it is a Jazper Stardust. He repurposes, upcycles these brushes, but since it's a natural squirrel head, or it's squirrel, might be sable, I'm going to pre-soak it. This is priming the brush, getting the hair wet. If you notice how when your hair is wet, it kind of changes and the shaft swells and all that, well, that's true of watercolor brushes. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab some of my Quinacridone Gold and just brush that out quite lightly. And I'm going to begin painting in my little stem. Early on, just give my little stem a little thought here. Now, the great thing about actually freehanding with your watercolor is it does kind of help you develop some little early painting skills where you just kind of go, oh, I'm going to just paint it in. You don't have to do that, though. I'm just brushing in the light variant of the stem. The reason the color is so light here is in watercolor, we go from our lighter values to our darker values. I want to kind of make sure that I capture a little bit, even in this brush stroke, of the kind of roughness of this little branch. Apple branches they're a bit of kit. A little bit coming there. And we have a little bit that kind of comes off here that's going to tuck out behind. So that's nice to get in. And you might have a little bit coming up there. So we've got some leaves that we're speaking of in these little directional branches. I can go ahead. I've got some green here. This green is my Phthalo Green and my nickel Azo Yellow that I mixed from earlier. And as we talked about, your watercolor paint reactivates. So I can use that and come in if I want to kind of green these little stems a bit.
Ooh.
And you can get away with that. And it's fun to do. Fun to do. Now on my leaves, I'm going to, again, want to capture the contour, the basic overall shape of the leaf. Right? But not the whole leaf. This part here we're doing is the underpainting. So let's make a let's call this like the stem. It's going to be its own segment. And this new segment here, we're going to call the leaf. So you get the stem in and a little bit of the apple sketched. And then for your next part, let's put in the leaf. If you've used the traceable, this is super easy peasy because you will have all these lines worked out for you. I think it's nice to know, and I get asked about this, I've been asked about this a lot, is, you know, do I ever just paint from the watercolor? And I do, especially when I'm painting for myself.
This is just, you just called this the apple?
Yeah, this is the apple and stem, and now I'm doing the leaves.
And this is just, you wanted right now to be a timestamp?
Yes, that's what I was saying. It's the leaves. The leaves are the timestamps. So there was the stem, an apple. That was one segment of video.
And now we have the next step.
And now for the next, we're going to do a leaf segment of video. I'm going to come here and bring this here. Just so you can find your way through, we'll timestamp the video after the show. And that way you can just find sections again if you're looking for them on the repaint. I'm going to go ahead and capture, you know, just this outside shape of leaf. I don't have to paint everything in a reference photo. If you have a beautiful apple tree outside and you grab a branch and you say to yourself, I'm going to be such an artist and I'm going to study this apple. I'm going to throw it down on my table and I'm going to paint what I see. You don't have to paint every single thing on the stem. You're allowed to visually edit anything that feels busy to you and not relevant to your overall composition.
Neat.
What I'm coming here is I'm on the toe and I'm just trying to make sure that I show that this leaf has this very rough edge, a lot of water, and you can see this is a very light color, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
As we go from lightest, right, to darkest. I'm going to pull a paper towel out. I like to have paper towels by me so that I can wipe off my brush, offload paint, and also I like to have them to pull up paint from the paper, gently, of course. Gently. How you guys doing? You having fun? The apple's going to be a pretty good little fun lesson. We're going to just be like, I'm going to pull up with my paper towel. Can you see a little highlight there?
Oh, yeah.
I've come in and pulled up a little highlight. We'll be doing that in the apple too. So this is going to be kept aside. You can see how I pulled paint into it. If you've never seen anyone do that, and did you notice how in the packaging it was like, what did it say? Let's go back to what it said. Improved color lifting.
Ooh, that was, well,
that's what they meant.
You just did that.
That's what we just did, and that's what they meant when they said that on the package.
That's so cool.
I'm not selling you Fabriano paper. I'm just telling you what those words mean and what that actually means in your painting experience when you see an art person put that word in and what you should expect. Because sometimes art places will put the words in, but they don't do what the thing they said they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's super frustrating. Again, this is the Phthalo Green in my nickel Azo Yellow, so it's quite light. I'm going to come here into my kind of Quin in my green and maybe speak a bit about a leaf here. I like its little pointed bit, so that's why I'm going to keep that, and I'll go back into my green. And that explains why there was a break in my stem here.
Ah.
I'm going to take my paper and kind of pull up a little color here at the tip, but it's, you know, it's there. Giving those leaves a little zhuzh, zhuzh.
Mm.
Zhuzh, zhuzh, zhuzh. You need some zhuzh. I'll pull up some of this interesting little leaf shape that's here. I can get a little phthalo green down if I need more green. So a lot of times people are like, do I have to draw to paint? No, because you can use tools like projection or gridding or traceables. There's a lot of tools and methods you can use. However, it's very nice when you learn drawing skills because what you start to do is see the shapes of things and stop being so caught up in the things themselves. So like right now, I'm just seeing the shapes of the leaves and I'm loosely watercoloring them. The effect of that is sometimes a very nice, fresh looking painting that we all kind of rather love.
Phthalo Green is a cool color.
It is a cool color. Like, literally. Especially blue shade. Because that's Phthalo Green. Blue shade. Not yellow shade, blue shade. Only important when you get into professional paint. Regular student paints won't tell you shades because they tend to use the most commonly used shade and not worry about the secondary least required shade. How is everyone doing? Let's say we're going to say that this is the end of leaves, and then we're going to go on to some basic apple.
Do you want a next step graphic?
Next step graphic, it can have a graphic as long as we have a timestamp, it's okay. Oh.
The next step.
Well, thank you, babe. That's very sweet. So as I mentioned earlier, when we do our watercolors, our lightest colors come on first, and then we build up. So yes, I am going to want to pull in darker and darker reds, but I'm going to start out with a little Hansa yellow and a little transparent Pyrrole orange, and this is going to be the beginning. And come here and just kind of loosely brush this wonderful bit in.
Ooh.
Very loosely here. You got to think about where the reflections are up top because those reflections are very big. Whether I'm painting acrylic or I'm painting watercolor, the apple will be in the reflection. So this is a very light wash that I'm going to use here. And then I'm going to very immediately before the paint dries, make another little spot with my paper towel. Make sure that I pop out a little spot that I know I can have reflections in because I do want that to be light. This can be wet down here and I may come into my yellow and green a bit. Be a little more yellow, but I just like a little green into it. And I'm going to spot some of this up because apples have a lot of personality, believe it or not. So much apple personality. I'm bringing a little of that yellow there. Take a little of my Ultramarine Blue, just barely any. And come here, and it's a little bit brown. Start to speak a bit about this part of the apple coming around. Just a very light color. And pinch my paper and just make sure I've got a little reflection pulled back here in a couple places. There we go. That's looking good. So we've got this basic sort of work in. I really want some of this to still be kind of softening and wet. I'm going to take, can you give me a next step?
I can.
Thank you. So in this step, I'm going to continue to add value to the apple, and I just want it to be wet enough for the paper to take the color in the water a little more. I'm going to grab a little of my orange now. And you can see the paper's still just a little wet. And get into my Pyrrole Red. Pyrrole Red is a terrific color, and I can mix my Pyrrole Red with my transparent Pyrrole Orange. They're very synergistic. And we're just putting these light glazes in. I'm going to make sure that I've got this lifted enough for the reflection. And I can also add water to it if I need to continue to soften it. But right now I've just got to build up. When we did our ornament for the little doggy, we did kind of a similar thing. I do not rough up the paper. I'm just holding a little bit of its value. I'm going to just put a little red in here.
All the little highlights.
Just a little bit. A little more red. And while that's still a little wet, I'm going to grab some Ultramarine Blue. And right here, because there's a shadow in the apple where the stem is. I don't want to lose that. I want to make sure that I have that shadow so that I can show the shape of the apple even as we go. I can lift up if I need to pull back some color for any reason. For any reason. I come along here and create this top lip of our apple. A little bit of our bend there. And you can see we're starting to get a little bit of a shape or divoting in there. Let's continue on. I'm going to pull our Pyrrole Red out. Now, and also every once in a while, I'll get into, if you'll notice, like a little bit of the ultramarine, it gives me a very kind of muted, it's not really purple, it's like kind of a burgundy. But that'll be something that I do work with.
As long as it's a raw burgundy.
As long as it's a raw burgundy.
It is a good-looking apple.
It is a good-looking apple. Apples are a lot of fun to paint, and they're the most fun to paint in watercolor, I feel, because they just take on so much personality. I'm going to leave this in this spot kind of white because these become reflections. A little more into this red, glazing down. I'm going to get some strong red. If I want to keep the white spots on the apple, I either have to put out Frisket or paint them back. We're going to paint them back today. It's just easier. You can do both. It's fine. But it is significantly easier to do the other. Working that down. Always get into your yellow and you can blend that up. And it will work wet into wet, right? Because when the paint is wet, it softens into it. You can even soften your reflections here with the brush. See how we're able to soften them? So the paper towel pulls a pretty clean, hard reflection, and the brush will pull a softer one. Those are important things to know. I'm going to continue to brush down a little bit of color. And I don't mind if up here, I get a little of the Ultramarine Blue involved. And I'm pulling the direction of the apple a bit.
These highlights really are incredible.
There's a little bit of a shadow. And the shadow kind of, I think, comes from the leaf some. I need to get darker with it. I just come back with a little more blue. Rinse out. I'm going to get my red involved. Like I'm daddling on the blue. I'm going to get this red involved. Coming along here with this little red on the toe of the brush.
That purple adds that depth.
It gives us a little depth on the apple, yeah. And then also the way we brush down our brush strokes, you can see, talks a bit about the shape and form of the apple. Just coming in, starts to come in. And just curling the brush strokes. Curving towards the right over on the right hand side, and I'll curve towards the left over on the left hand side. You might get a little of my Quinacridone Magenta and my Pyrrole together here, just for this part.
Switching to Thursdays threw everybody off a little bit.
Yeah, we're really sorry. We got kind of caught. We just got caught in the workflow on the Wednesday and could not get online. And so we were like, we'll just, you know what? We'll just make sure we do a Thursday. So if ever I'm going to change a day, I will try to post about it in the community tab on the YouTube channel where the class is planned. I will also post in group on the Facebook group on Facebook, the official, and on the page. Sometimes I will tweet about it, but at least those 3 places, because our calendar won't always update off the website. The new calendar will be easier to update, but the old one was not easier to update. Adding a little bit of this magenta here, and I'm stroking down in the direction of the apple, as you do. Little Quinacridone Magenta. And I like the Quin because it sort of pushes color, as you can see back.
Really does.
And that just starts to create more sheen and sheen and sheen. You know, a little bit of the nickel azo, which again pushes back. It pushes, so this particular pigment will push the other pigment away, and I might get a little green involved. Tell on it with a little of the Phthalo Green. I think it's important to hint a little green on an apple.
Oh, yeah.
A personal opinion. But it's one I hold pretty strongly, so.
You know, I like going to apple farms because of all the different things that you can find, like apple carved doll faces and dried apple chips and apple cider and then like apple art like this, and you just never expect all these things that you can do with an.
If you're a working artist, if you're doing this for a living and you're trying to figure out how to make that a full-time living, it is good to have a core. This is not a popular thing to say, but here's the truth. This is the truth of feeding yourself as an artist. It is good to have a core of commercial work that sustains you while your more experimental or edgier collections finds their places, right? So if you're just talking about the day-to-day, week-to-week of what you're doing in your art business, you know, unless you're like super avant-garde, which is a different thing entirely, you know. But if you're just a traditional painter, it's still nice to have things that are smaller and relatable. The people who like your work but maybe won't be able to relate to a bigger or more contemporary piece or something more a little non-traditional can collect something. And once you have them as a collector, you have them for life. They'll come and get the rest of the pieces because people are completionists. All right, let's add some more to the stem. Let's call this a step. Let this all have a minute because we can dry brush here, but I think we've got some nice apple going, don't we? And our apple has some personality, which is always lovely. The next step, let's work our stem.
Stem time.
Let's get our ultramarine burnt umber.
Is the watercolor no? Is the watercolor completely dry under the green you just put down? It was okay.
Yeah. So what happens is you squeeze it out of the tube and it's wet, and that's great when you're wetting out big areas and if you're trying to make big washes and you're working big sheets of paper. Fantastic. But it dries and you can keep using it. You can use all the little stainy watercolors on your palette. You can use all the watercolor that dries up in the corners. It's just good forever. It's still activatable. I'm going to get a little of my ultramarine blue over here because my ultramarine blue and my burnt umber create a very neutral gray. And I'm also going to make sure I've got some of my Quinacridone Gold, which is kind of like a burnt sienna. You can kind of see it's just a little more in the orange. You just work both. I'm going to try to start to talk about the positioning of some of these little stems. Especially this one going into the apple. If I need to, I might grab a little of my Payne's Gray at this stage. This is my Payne's Gray. I'm coming up and just making sure this stem is very defined as what it is and has some contrast. And I've got a bit of a stem that comes off here. And so we're just making sure that these occupy the space that we put them in. Huh. So it's the layering. It's what object is in front of the other object. And we do that by what lines we continue unbroken and what lines we break to show that something is in front of something else. Now I'm kind of on the toe of my brush. And I'm doing what's called glazing. Almost dry brushing, but mostly it's glazing at this stage. And I'm going to try to come here and really enjoy the roughness of the stem. I can come and get a little of my Payne's Gray into my brown. Make some little rough marks here, just kind of tap along, and it needs some personality, you know? Mm-hmm. Bring a little bit down. And working the toe, I don't try to paint a solid line down the stem. I try to break that color. I try to change it up. It's the goal anyway.
It is a goal.
Be happy and just, you know, kind of do it. All right. I can even take a little bit of this here. Nah, I'm going to do it with a purple or something more magenta.
Yeah.
I am not going to do it with that. You can, but I want something a little more neutral to get the little dark spotting on the apple.
Aurora had a question.
Aurora, how are you? It's so great to answer your question this evening. What is Aurora's question?
Do I need to cover my palette between uses of watercolor from a tube, or can I just leave it out?
Okay. So, right here is a good example of how awesome this question is. I'm sporting a Tom Lynch palette, right? Which is a very serious palette, and it comes with a lid that has a seal. And that is because many, many watercolors prefer their watercolor wet, right? Not dried out. And so you can put that all together and keep it completely sealed, and it will stay wet. Now, watercolor can mold, weirdly. I've never had it happen, but I also let my paint dry out. Right? I've never maintained a moist palette. It's not that that's right. It's just not what I do. I do think the benefit of that is a lack of mold, because when you use water, if you're not using distilled water and you're putting it into your watercolor, you can introduce things that will mold. And if you're sealing it up, then that can happen. And so I imagine in gesso and in watercoloring, that's how that kind of thing happens when palettes are sealed and they're still moist and something got introduced. I let mine dry out. The positives of that are the mold we mentioned, and that I can let it sit for a minute and not be too stressed about it. The negatives are that I have to re-wet the watercolor. That's just all the little truth about that.
Oh.
And you really got to kind of decide, like, what is my temperament is to not seal the palette. I'm getting my burnt umber. I'll get some of my ultramarine blue, put some of my Payne's gray in there, and I'm going to come in and do another little bit. I'm on the toe of the brush. I'm making little kind of like marks. I've let the hairs of the brush kind of break open, as you can see. And that's giving me a rough effect. So I can enjoy doing that. Creating a little dimensionality in our stems.
Ah.
This is almost like a dry brushing. All right. I might come back with a little knuckle Azo Yellow, a couple points in here. Gold it up a little, a couple places. I've added a little gold. I may also come in and get a little bit of my transparent Pyrrole orange. I'm going to add just a little bit of that a few places. I like it. I like weird little pops of color that come up. A little green. Let's call that a step, and then we'll do some leaves.
Okay. The next step.
The next.
It's a good thing I've been keeping track of which step we're on.
I know what you
That
mean.
next step.
That next step. I'm going to take my Phthalo Green and into my nickel Azo Yellow. And it's okay to get some of the Quinacridone Gold. I'm beginning to work out the rough edges here.
Yeah.
Some rough edges of the leaves. Nice points. I'm pulling that. And I'm just letting the brush do that work for me. It's doing the hard lifting, the heavy lifting. Couple ways I can do the veining in the leaf. I can do it with a gouache after. I can use a liquid masking agent and mask out the veining. I can choose not to paint the veining, or I can come back with like a little nickel azo after it's all kind of glazed and dry and add that in, because it'll push the color a bit. And you'll see what I mean. You can also kind of leave a little bit unpainted. and get some interesting results there. A little bit of my Quinacridone Gold and my Phthalo Green and my nickel Azo, and we're going to just give our leaf a little dimensionality. Because they have them. They're very colorful. The forward-facing leaf. A little bit of the green and a little bit of the Quinacridone Gold, so it's quite dark. You notice I'm kind of leaving a center here untouched.
Yeah.
Like that very much. Rinse out. This leaf here, I'm going to get a little of my Quinacridone Gold. And interestingly enough, come in and just glaze a bit. That's kind of nice. That gives that leaf a little bit of a dry kind of fold effect.
Yeah.
A little green on the
Give
bottom.
some dimension to them.
Little dimensionality, as it's wont to have. This is still wet, so I can't really work this leaf. And I really like this leaf in the back distance, kind of very lightly watercolored. I might come in and glaze just a small amount of shape to it. Just a small amount. This needs to dry for a second and think about what it's done. So let's leave that there, and we can come back to the apple for a minute. I'm going to take a little of my Quinacridone Magenta and my Ultramarine Purple, and they really Ultramarine Blue, and they create quite a lovely purple. You could buy purple pigment. And I'm going to, on the toe of my brush, kind of dry brush as you can see, a little bit of the lip of that apple. I'm coming here and dry brushing, and those brush strokes kind of imply some directionality, don't they?
Huh.
Just a little bit. And it will lighten. That's important. Like just dry brushing a little of the apple there. A little bit of the Pyrrole Red. I want to get it wet enough where it's going to come off my brush, but still kind of. Flaring it up. Very light, and it's kind of a curve. Powerful stuff, dry brushing, even in watercolor. Just dry brush along.
You're just dry brushing that on now?
I'm just dry brushing it on. There's not a lot of water on my brush, light pigment. Just deepening that through those layers. can soften it with a little magenta. If I'm like, okay, that feels too harsh to me in any place.
Mm-hmm. Man,
See,
I'm with everybody in chat. This apple looks great.
It's just getting there. It's fun. It's so fun. Only thing that can make this better is if like a little bug was living on it. That's when it is the best. Little bug is living on it. At this point, I feel like this leaf is dry enough. So I can come here and I'm going to kind of reserve a little of the center. I'm dry brushing this coming out, but I've still got that center vein.
Mm-hmm.
I come under here, the Quinacridone Gold. Has a bit of a shadow on it.
A bit.
Just a bit.
I
Nice
love
little
how
bit
this
of
has
the
come
shadow.
together. The purple looks beautiful.
I like it very much. It makes me happy. I am resisting doing splatter. Nice little green there. It's a bright pop. Now I can come back with a little nickel Azo Yellow. And lightly vein that a little bit. It's not a big thing. Back in with my dark green. Give it a little bit of
Oh.
that leaf sits a little bit above the other.
That looks fantastic.
And come here and add some beauty marks. Apples often have beauty marks. What kind of spots and things? It's nice to put a few. You can also, weirdly, like I can do like a little of my purple and orange. It's going to create kind of like a brown. So some of the beauty marks can have some different values. Little beauty mark.
You know what they say about apples?
Hmm.
If you do one a day, you'll become a great painter.
Actually, paint an apple every day and you will. They're a wonderful subject, and they have lots of varietals and colors and different challenges and different things to make them interesting for you, the painter. Now, I feel like I've lost a little reflection over here.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back. I'm kind of wet the paper a bit. I don't think I'm going to be able to lift that much, but I'll do what I can because I'm going to come back with, I think I got under the painting of the structure and kind of lost a little of my reflection. But you can see I can lift up a bit. And this is when having really good paper kind of comes into play, because if you have really good paper, you can get away with a lot. Now, I am going to take my fluid white acrylic.
Your fluid?
Yeah. So this is my golden fluid acrylic titanium white, and I am going to use a couple of brushes to create a couple of effects. I'm going to use my Artist Loft Dome blender. Here's the issue between it and the Princeton. See how the head doesn't move?
Yeah.
This one goes away.
Huh.
But then I realized sometimes I like shortening the length out. And I could just reseat the brush and I didn't really care. I'm going to use a little of this loaded on here. Kind of tap the brush up and down. It's going to create kind of a diffused little reflection, if you guys can see. And some of the pigment will come up through. There'll be some discoloration in it. So the structural induced discoloration that you get here is actually in your favor. I'm going to tap up and down. I want this to be a slightly diffused reflection. So I have both of those a bit. And then I can come in and make it a little bit hotter, unlike a spot. Hotter would be whiter, more light reflected back.
Might get cross in there. Ooh, look at that.
No, just a little bit of light reflected back. I can come in and also I've got a little light on top of the apple. I'll go ahead and kind of continue on some of the reflections on that far side. There, that looks pretty good. That pops that reflection a bit.
Yeah.
A little there. And then the other thing that I definitely want to add, I'm kind of coming down the far side. And then they have these little dots. And you got time to dot. And it's when you get this deep into your fruit that it just becomes a subject that's super fun to paint.
It really is beautiful.
You want to get deep with your fruit. Don't be shallow with your fruit. Because remember, Halston wouldn't approve. Because it just has to be beautiful. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at that documentary. I keep saying to John, let Halston do what Halston wants to do. It's Halston, baby. Just listen. Halston wants to do it. It's a good idea.
I'm about it.
Don't make Halston decide luggage. Now we're getting those little dots in. Oh, this is a really fun one.
It really is.
So this type of work is very illustrative, and I do
illustrative.
Yeah, I tend to be a little illustrative in my watercolors, and guess what? I'm not sorry for it. Doesn't bother me. One, because I can do some really extreme fine artwork when I need to, but also because this is where the calm is. This is like my Audubon Society botanical book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, illustrations of things that make me happy. So a thing I can do here, kind of tap out a few little dots and make this little reflection like a little bit. What? You never know what's going to be like. You're like, dude, apple is deep.
It's true.
I get deep with the apple. And I feel like the little white dots there are like stars. And you can just go and go and go and go. This apple's making me happy. Is the apple making them happy?
It really is. Everyone is loving this.
You just find your little dots. They're like your little apple stars. You could even make a little one of them a star, and that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you paint these enough, you could probably get away with doing a galaxy apple. Well, that looks like it's got a little appleness. Now it does, I feel like, have to have a little reflection at the base. Go with me. Hopefully this will go over well. Kind of dry brushing. Making sure there's a bit of one there. Oh yeah.
A little bit
Present
here.
in the original. And so sometimes when you get into it, if you can honor everything that you see, it really makes a even kind of dry brush the white here. You could do colored pencils, you could do pastels. It really isn't mission critical which one you choose.
Mm.
Now, it's fantastic. Again, perfect
I
one to
love
have
the
like a little
dots.
caterpillar or bug or something happening down the stem. But we are just doing apple today because we're learning how to do watercolor, right? I think I'll go into my green. I get asked a lot, can I use my acrylic brushes for watercolor or my watercolor brushes for acrylic? What I'll say is acrylic is really hard on watercolor brushes. Watercolor is not hard on acrylic brushes, so you can see that I can very easily have my #1 monogram liner make the journey from both. But it's also a synthetic filament. What?
Nice. That's
It's
so
like,
cool.
Yeah, we watercolor around here. What do? We watercolor. And you put that in a nice double matte frame behind glass and put a nice molding on it that looks good in your kitchen. And believe you me, people comment. They love an apple painting.
You don't need that.
It's
It's
real
there,
strange.
And
You know, if you got it's just the apple painting and a lemon painting and an orange painting and the inside of cantaloupes, anything pomegranate, people love it. And they love a little fat bird and some flowers. And you know what? It is okay. It is okay to paint the subjects that are calming, that are restorative, and that give you a connection back to nature in a world that is a little bit crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not everything we has to be some outward edge extreme art of something that like makes us question our nature of reality. Sometimes it's good to paint a little apple.
Check out the apple.
Check out the apple. I wouldn't take it to Art Basel unless it was like an actual apple that I nailed into a wall. But short of that,
Someone will just eat your fruit.
someone will just come along and be so mad that you sold your fruit that they eat your fruit.
You know what?
There's always got to be a hater, doesn't there? There's just always got to be a
So
hater.
what you gotta do?
Just troll it out.
This is what you do. Lick it before you put it on the wall.
I think you can go to jail for that now.
Go, See, no, you're the artist. It's like I have licked
Did
this
anybody
and claimed
remember when Brent Spiner, is it Brent Spiner who played Data, like was sick and he was drinking some water
that's
and they were
right.
like saying it was like a computer
the
virus.
Spiner flu.
The Spiner flu. And then somebody bought it in the auction raising money for charity and then drank it.
I
They did. They
Q,
drank
are you sure it was Spiner, not Q, who did that? Because it may have been the actor who played Q, and that's how the original Q virus went around.
Maybe it was the Q virus.
I
Maybe
think
it
it was
was.
a
I
Q-
might be. I'm
think it
I'm
was-
a Trekkie, not a Trekker, so it could be either. I know generally a virus
I
from
think
one
there
of the
were
stars was drank.
Spiner girls.
Huh?
There were Spiner girls.
Dude, they
That's
were
what it was.
serious about it.
They
Super
wanted them.
serious.
There were them clunky girls that
Hmm?
like the androids. That's the
I don't know what that is.
subculture of people who like androids.
I did not know that.
There you go.
I paint an apple,
Learn a
so I
little-
didn't know. I did not. Did you know that?
You learn some facts about Star Trek, and you're like, whoa.
I learn new stuff
there's-
every day. I just don't want to be mad about the stuff I learn every day. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I'm just like, huh, that's interesting. But it's like, it's okay.
Mhm.
It's super good, right? Like, so, I mean, if you love Spiner, I want you to know that I support you in that Spiner love. If you are a Spiner girl, I think that's completely, totally okay and awesome. Because Data was the bomb. Like, let's be honest.
I think Lieutenant Yar thought so.
Yeah, you Lieutenant. Well, I think I mean, it's like I get the appeal. I really there's so many questions, which we won't do on this show because it's a family-friendly show. But I did have all the questions. Okay, so next week is a very chill little. I'm going to show you how to paint some pine trees with watercolor, just the distant pine trees in watercolor. Sometimes it's good. It's a brush exercise. It's a technique exercise. It'll help you work on those core skills. If you'd like to share your apple in the group, you can just come by the Art Sherpa official and share your watercolors. Come by the page. Definitely subscribe to the channel. Oh, gosh. Be sure you subscribe to the channel and watch the stories over here because we're going to start dropping the paint mixing stories, and hit that because we're going to show you how to make watercolor paint from scratch, for real. The ingredients, the techniques, the methods, everything you need to know for your basic first set of paints. That's your primaries, your white and black. Not just show you, teach you.
Teach you.
For real. So there's going to be some show you videos that also teach you more than any of the show you videos. And then there's going to be a teach you video that's live. So you can ask questions. Because in doing research for this over the last good bit, we have learned a lot.
We have.
And we'd love to share it.
Thank you guys for joining us today. It's very nice. We had a nice crew of people here painting an apple.
Thank you. You guys be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Take care of your hearts. Take care of your souls. And I want to see you and Anizo really soon. Bye-bye.